Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me on the Slice of Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today is the co-founder and CEO at CompStak, Michael Mandel. Michael, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you. Let's first dive into your background. Tell us about you.
Well, I am a reformed commercial real estate broker, now founder and co-founder and CEO of CompStak, which is a commercial real estate data company. Grew up in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia. Big Eagles fan, and went to school in Boston. Went to Babson to study entrepreneurship. Worked for a year in commercial music production, and then got into commercial real estate brokerage before starting CompStak out of that experience as a broker.
Don't be shocked if when you say the Eagles piece, there's like a boo soundtrack that plays. But we'll be nice. I don't think we'll do that to you.
I can take it, we're a robust bunch, Eagles fans, so I'm good with that.
Yeah, no, you actually, yeah, that's true. Like it's my favorite fans to kind of go back and forth with are Eagles fans because you can dish it out, but you can also take it as well, which is awesome. Uh, I'm sure the Giants fans in New York don't like you too much, but hey, you have Saquon now, right? You
Yeah,
have
there you go. There you
I
go. I
love
don't know
it.
how I feel. I don't know how I feel about it, but we'll see.
I think either way you'll have another good team, which is more than I can say now about my Patriots. It's the dark days
Yeah.
are here for us. Uh,
It's payback for all those years of dominating everyone. So
what with starting CompStak, Michael? You had this kind of you talked a little bit about a personal journey, right? And you mentioned that you were a reformed commercial real estate guy. Um, can you talk us through why that choice of wording, and how your experience in commercial real estate helped you in starting up this venture?
I don't know if there's a good reason for the choice of wording. Actually, it was a fun profession. You know, Being a broker is interesting because you eat what you kill. It's a commission based job, and that was actually I was well suited for that. But it's a tough job. Particularly in New York, to be a broker. There's a lot of competition, and it was interesting. But for me, I never really intended to be a broker, as my career. I liked it because it was entrepreneurial, because it is a field where you eat what you kill, and that appealed to my entrepreneurial mentality. But it wasn't about building a business, at least in the more traditional entrepreneurial sense. Certainly, you're building a business as a broker, but not in the same way. I wanted to build a company, and I always wanted to build a company. So what it did for me is it gave me an opportunity to learn about an industry that I really, found compelling. The real estate industry is amazingly interesting. I mean, and you can to be able to walk down the streets and see the industry that you live in and work in everywhere you go is pretty cool. But there were so many opportunities in the industry because commercial real estate was so antiquated, in many ways still is so antiquated. And so I don't know that I realized getting into it just how many opportunities there would be to identify, just by virtue of the fact that the industry was so antiquated.
With CompStak, you rely on crowdsourced information, right?
Hmm.
As with the company, can you talk about I can imagine there's some challenges with this, but there's also probably much more benefits as a result of that model. But maybe specifically, I can imagine that model is difficult in the early days. It becomes less difficult as you continue to build up that data, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've built a two-sided marketplace. I don't recommend it to anyone. It's really hard. I don't know that if I started another business again, I would build another marketplace business. It's because you're constantly having to solve this chicken or the egg issue, right? The way our platform works, we have a network of, at this point, close to 40,000 commercial real estate brokers, appraisers, and research people in real estate brokerage firms who give data to CompStak. They earn credits for sharing that data, which is like a virtual currency. and they can use those credits to get other data back out. And of course, when you get new people to come onto the platform, they are thinking about, well, is this worthwhile for me? Why should I give you my data? Is there data to get out? And of course, well, if they don't give the data, there is no data to get out. And so you have to, either get the data or get the people, but you need the people to get the data. And so we've had to, really crack that chicken or the egg issue and not do it once, but do it over and over and over again because New York is such a local, I'm sorry, New York real estate is such a local business. And we started in New York, but then we had to do it again in San Francisco. And then we had to do it in the greater Bay Area, and then we had to do it in LA and in Chicago and in Dallas. And, we went market by market, having to tap into the local communities in each of these markets and get people on board and engaged, and willing to share. And so yeah, over time though, it's a virtuous cycle. There's a flywheel. Once there's data in there that people find value in, then they want to give their data because they want to get that data out. And so it gets easier and easier over time for sure.
Can I just say, while you're describing that, hearing the sounds of New York behind you, it's just, someone I can, it's crazy. Just hearing those sounds, I can picture what's happening, right? There's an ambulance or a police officer trying to get through. Everyone's in traffic trying to move to the side. The horns are going. It's really cool. Like, it was cool that was happening, especially when you said New York. It was like you said New York, and then everything started happening with it.
Yeah.
When can you talk us through a little bit like how you ensure the accuracy and reliability of all this data? And I think the cool part too about what you've built, though, you talk about maybe you wouldn't do it again, these two-sided marketplaces. The cool part with a two-sided marketplace is when you do it well, like you have, it does become like a moat for you, right? Because it's not easy.
100%. That's what I always say to our team and to our investors is like, this was ridiculously hard. I'd never want to do it again. But the fact that it's so hard is a proof point that it's going to be very hard for anybody to compete with us. And then once we have a lot of data, then we have that mode of having all this data and having all these users, and every day it become the defensibility of what we've built gets stronger and stronger. So, and now I'm forgetting the first part of your question. Um,
That makes two of us. Oh, it was like ensuring the vast like reliability of the data, like
oh,
out of all this
reliability.
vast
Yeah.
data. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot to it actually. So, over time we've tried to automate more and more of it, through data science and technology, where we can find outliers in the data and flag issues in the data. But other parts of it have to do with scoring our users, right? So we actually, if we get data from lots of different users, even for the same piece of information. And when we're comparing a submission of a transaction of a comp, and one person who submitted it has given us data that's been very reliable for 5 years, and someone else has given us a piece of information and they're brand new to CompStak. Well, the person who's been with us for 5 years, they have an established score on our platform, sort of like an Uber rating. And so we're going to trust their data as being more reliable versus the person who's brand new on the system. It also has to do with their role. If the transaction was completed by Cushman and Wakefield, and the person who submitted the comp was either the person who did the deal or someone else from Cushman and Wakefield, they're going to have their comp submission be treated as more reliable than someone who gave it to us who's from a different firm that wasn't involved in the transaction. Um, and even looking at the files received, certain file types are more reliable, than others, and we look at it that way. Um, we also have a system by which our members can update information that's incorrect, and then that will decrease the rating of the person who submitted the information, cause that their data to be flagged. They can actually lose credits if they've submitted data that's been updated by someone else, or they can get kicked off the system. And so that's really helpful. And then we also have an analyst review component. So information that's been flagged as potentially being an issue gets reviewed by our analysts. And our analysts might call the person who submitted the data, or call someone who was involved in the transaction and try to really figure out what's right and what's wrong. So it's really a multi-pronged approach. It's a human in the loop model where we've got technology and humans working together. and we continuously refine that model over time.
Can you share, and if you can't, just say you can, the most surprising or unconventional insights that you've kind of gained from this data?
Well, one thing is speaking about reliability is just because you've received a piece of information 10 times doesn't make it more reliable. Because sometimes people play a game of telephone in the industry, exchanging the same incorrect information over and over again. So that's one thing I think most people just assume that because we've received something a lot, therefore it's more reliable than you might think it is. And the flip side being, you could receive something once and it can be perfect, and so that's an interesting challenge and insight, I suppose.
It wouldn't be a conversation in 2024 if I don't mention AI. And we don't have to talk much about it, but it seems like, though, I have to bring this up. Like, do you envision like AI and machine learning impacting real estate analytics in the future?
Oh, absolutely. And it already is and has. I mean, we've had a data science team now in place for over 10 years. We've been leveraging, AI for that amount of time. A lot of what we do from an AI perspective has to do with the way that we validate and cluster data and make sense of the data on the back end so that we provide great results to our users. So it wasn't like blatant AI that you knew was AI driven, but things like our competitive set algorithm where we identify properties that are most similar to other properties, and we leverage both supervised and unsupervised machine learning, which is a form of AI, to arrive at those results. And we're constantly tuning our algos, leveraging AI to improve results. So it already has been impacting, data and analytics businesses, and certainly ours, and will continue to. Um, but I think what I'm excited about is the fact that when people think about AI, they think about Chat GPT and large language models and generative AI, and in order for those models to be powerful, they have to be trained, leveraging a ton of data. And then they need ongoing high quality data to provide good results. And so the technology around these LLMs, is becoming rather commoditized, right? You've got obviously, you know, OpenAI and ChatGPT is the most prominent, but you've got, Facebook's Llama, and you've got, Google's, Bard, and there's, um, I don't remember the one now that
Claude?
Claude. I don't even know. Oh, Claude, and then what's the X one? Is the X one Claude? I don't know. Anyway,
Oh, Grok.
Grok. Yeah. So there's so many of them, right? These models are becoming commoditized. What will never be commoditized is the data that powers them. And so we're very excited as a data company by what can be done when you put these models on top of a unique data set like ours. And, Sam Altman was recently quoted as saying that as they, are continue to build on ChatGPT, they're no longer going to be training on the whole data set of everything out there in the world. They're done with that. Their future training and their future work is going to be focused on high quality data sets, for data that comes from major news publications like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and things like, which of course they're getting sued. So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. But the valuable data sets are what's going to drive the future of these models, and so we feel very well positioned as a data company in that regard.
That's well put. Yeah, I mean, AI is obviously it's amazing, but if you have like uncleaned data, it means nothing. I mean, you'll get an answer, right? But it's not going to be the answer that you want, and it's not going to be a factual answer that you can take. Um, and a lot of the companies that work with you, right? This is why they work with you. They need that high quality data. They can't afford to do a search on ChatGPT and get something that is then they put that in their presentation, and all of a sudden they're in trouble. Um, that's super interesting take. So like real estate has gotten a lot better over the years, but compared to other industries, it hasn't really driven innovation from a tech side of things. It hasn't been on that same level. What advice did you have for other entrepreneurs trying to kind of break into traditional sectors like a real estate?
Well, I think that, the people who I've seen who've had success in, prop tech, right, have have more often than not come from a background of being and living and breathing that industry. So one thing I would say is, try to really understand the industry that you're thinking about, building in. If you have an idea about the industry but you haven't actually worked in it, go work in it for a little bit to get the lay of the land so you can really truly understand the problems. I think that that saved us a lot of heartache and a lot of challenges. There were investors early on who were like, well, why don't you go at it this way? Why don't you do this? And why don't you do that? And I'm like, I'm not going to do that because I've worked in the industry and I know that won't work. Like I know well enough from working with people that that won't work. And I can understand why you think it would, but I can tell you it won't. Right. And I think that the best thing you can know when trying to build a business in an industry vertical is really understanding that vertical. I think the other thing I'd say is you just have to really have conviction in your instincts around it. Because when we started CompStak, there was no such thing as prop tech or CRE tech. We were talking to investors and we had to constantly convince them that the real estate market, which is the largest asset class in the world, commercial real estate, I think is this, is the second largest. I mean, the third largest, something like that. And, we had to convince them that this was a large enough market to warrant businesses in it. That that real estate was big enough. They didn't the instinct at the time was that wait, this industry may not be big enough. Nobody's thinking that anymore. So you have to really have conviction, and be willing to go to the mat with that conviction. Um, Particularly when you're dealing in a vertical that has not become the hot vertical as of yet.
Don't you love when investors will say it's almost sometimes they'll say something though and they know you're gonna like say, pour some cold water on it. I had one person one time when we were building, because I was in the healthcare tech space. Uh, they said you should change your pricing model to make it like these were like one-time things. Just break it into 12-month payments for everything that you do for a one-time payment. This was like even we should have just used like a Klarna or like or one of those services, right? That like does it. So we started doing this for all these customers, and then I went back and said, "This doesn't work. This is like actually like." They're like, "Well, why would you do that?" I was like, it's like, yeah, it's super interesting. But kudos to you for what you've built, Michael. I mean, you've had a couple rounds of funding. You've built this company. You have all these employees now. Must feel pretty good looking back to kind of see where you started versus where you're at today. And I know there's probably still going on through your mind much more ahead. That being said, what's next for CompStak that gets you really excited for that you can share with us here today?
Our real focus as of late has been on building a more robust platform that can be a one-stop shop for our clients. We started off with lease transaction data, lease comps, and we started in really just office deals, and we started just in New York. And then we expanded into office deals in various markets, and then major markets, and then throughout the country, and we expanded into industrial and into retail. Then later on, we added sales comps, sales transactions, and very granular, detailed information around sales comps. We built an analytics layer on top of it. We built more robust property data. We struck a partnership with um, RealPage to bring in multifamily data. We added public record loan data. We did a partnership with TREC to bring in loan information from CMBS, commercial mortgage-backed securities. And so we're just constantly trying to add more and more to the platform so that we are viewed as the go-to source for commercial real estate data. That's everything about what we've done and what we're building and how we think about our roadmap is continuing to, build that picture. And, what really becomes powerful and compelling about that is that these data sets all complement each other, right? So, for instance, right now people are looking for distress. And because we brought on all these different data sets, I can do a search in CompStak for, properties that have loans maturing in the next 2 years that have over a certain number of square feet of leases also expiring, because if you've got a lot of space expiring, your vacancy's going up, and you've got your loan maturing, you're clearly going to be in distress, and that's an opportunity, right? Um, the fact that we have those data sets all combined allows us to provide that level of insight. So um, it's a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of thing. And so we're excited to continue to make the platform more robust, and particularly in this environment, explore ways that not only can we help people make investment decisions and lending decisions, but also how we can help them, save money and protect their assets, in a tough environment.
I love it. Well, I'm rooting for you. I'm so excited for what you've already built. I can't wait to have you on again already in the near future. And we're just ending now. So, uh, best of luck with everything. Keep creating a really awesome product platform, and let's stay in touch.
Awesome. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me.